Hi Aries, welcome to your end of September 2019 General Tarot Update. It's Serena here. Well, the top three cards really speak to, I think, like an ending of some sort. And the timing when I do these readings is pretty tricky because you can't necessarily say, okay, it's going to happen in, the end of September necessarily. You do have a full moon in your sign coming up on the 13th of October, so within a matter of weeks, and that might be more of when the closure or the ending is taking place. So let's look at each card. The heart of the matter is the Ace of Swords. This is a card of seeing things clearly, maybe cutting through illusion that had been, or even it could be illusion or somebody's deception. Maybe somebody has been lying to you, and now you can move forward because you have the truth. And so whatever that means for your life, it can be just about anything. It can be a personal relationship. It can be a work situation too, where you are finding out exactly what's been going on behind the scenes perhaps, and therefore able to start things in a new direction, maybe, with the Ace of Swords. And you have like a clear path because your mind is clear. You're not confused anymore. In the past position, we have the Eight of Cups, which is a card of, leaving what no longer serves you. And I like to also include the spiritual quest. So sometimes, even like with a marriage or some other romantic relationship, it may not be a bad one, but it may not be something that is satisfying. And perhaps you got together with somebody for the wrong reasons, and it's like with the Ace of Swords, you realize that finally, and you say, gosh, I think I just was lonely. I was on the rebound or something like that. And you can kind of like see how you made a decision out of fear, out of loneliness, took a job and tolerated a lot of nonsense because you were going through a divorce and you just didn't want to have to deal with making all these changes at once. You were just overwhelmed, so you kind of stayed in a job that you weren't fulfilled at. The higher message is the World card. This is the last card of the Major Arcana, and it points to the end of a cycle. So we go through different cycles in our lives, and these cycles, I actually have an astrology book about cycles, and I never really read it. I would like to read it because there are different cycles, and it's fascinating to think about them. Think about the Saturn cycle. There is, every 30 years approximately, we have our Saturn return, and it happens to coincide with major periods of life, like adulthood, like real adulthood, when you're about to turn 30 and you're kind of like having gone through a lot of the wildness of your 20s, and now you're ready to settle down. And then around the age of, you know, the late 50s or 60, and the time when you're, chances are, you know, the average person might have already gone through everything they can in their career. Now, that's not going to be true for everyone, because we're individuals, and some people do things differently. They have children when they're 18, and they don't start a career until they're 45. You know, nobody can guarantee that you're going to do something, you know, at a certain time. But there's certain kinds of cycles that are, even if you're not doing like the thing that everybody expects you to do, there still will be a similar theme. It might be emotional, where you feel a certain desire to settle down, or desire to kind of like not be as interested in the material and be more interested in the spiritual. And for instance, yeah, you know, a good example is the in the yogic tradition. I'm talking about specifically the Hindus. They have a thing where, you know, you're a householder for a certain amount of time. And so that means that you might have a family, you have a career, and then when you get to be a certain age, you're, I think it's called sannyasin, where you're just kind of like a spiritual aspirant, and then you kind of leave that material life behind. And that kind of thing, it's kind of like at the retirement age. So isn't it funny, like in the Western world, people play golf when they retire. And in the Eastern tradition, they use their earlier years for the material part, and then they devote the later years to the spiritual life, which is very interesting, because it's like that's the time that makes sense, you know, when you think about it timing wise. So I know I kind of got off on a tangent, but I think that as a spiritual message with the World card, it's to show you, Aries, that there is a time for everything. You know, that song, A Time for All. You know, there's a season for love, and there's a time, I wouldn't call it for hate, but there's a time when you might have to let go of a relationship, let go of a job. You know, you have fulfilled whatever you were meant to fulfill in that, and now, you know, and so in other words, don't be sad about it. Don't try to cling to something that is truly done with. What crosses you is the Queen of Pentacles, and that is a card, you know, if we look at it in the reversed position, the Queen of Pentacles can be a woman who is overly materialistic. So this, now, by the way, I would even say this as a female boss, because anytime I see the Queen, I think of a like an authority figure, okay? So whether it's a mother or a boss, but this can be somebody who is, you know, if you're leaving a job, could possibly be vindictive and say, you know, I'm not going to give you a good recommendation. If you're dealing with like a third party, perhaps the Ace of Swords in a personal relationship is you found out that your partner is cheating, and maybe even like the mother of his child, and she finds out about you and she's giving you grief. Could be one of those deals. On your end, are you being too materialistic about something? Are you like ready to walk away from a situation based on money versus what the Eight of Cups is about, which is about more of the fulfillment? You know, what is your motivation for ending something? What's coming in, or the advice, is the Ten of Cups. Is the card of marriage, of the pot at the end of the rainbow. So the number 10 is the culmination, the you know, the end of a cycle. So we would say the heightened version of this. And also, this is family harmony. If there's some kind of a situation where you have left a partner and the home life had suffered, this is going to help your family improve the dynamics, because this person might have been a narcissistic individual and they may have pitted one child against the other, tried to get your children against you in some way. By the way, the Queen of Pentacles could be this person's mother, like a mother-in-law, and you find, maybe that's what it is. You find out that she has been poisoning them well, that she has been turning your children against you. If you have anything like that, there are resources on YouTube about the grandmother, the narcissistic grandmother, and how they, you know, wreak havoc in the family with their own agenda. So check that out, because that can be very informative. But there's something like you're removing yourself from a situation, and that restores your family's happiness, because you don't have these interfering entities anymore. And the outcome is the King of Swords. This is a card, I mean, this could even be like a judge's decision if you're getting divorced. If this is a factor with you, you could be like able, Aries, to move on without feeling this sense of like emotional entanglement. The King of Swords is very detached, so that he can make a decision that is based purely on logic, and it makes it so that you can do what you need to do. And you know, when people are going through transition in life, a lot of times it is messy. A lot of times there are mixed emotions. You know, I don't know why people think that even if you have a marriage that is falling apart and you've been cheated on, that means that you're just going to be able to leave and it's no big deal. That's not realistic. People have mixed emotions because it isn't all bad. So that makes it hard to actually take action. Luckily for Aries, Aries is a sign that even though you're passionate, you're not, I wouldn't call you particularly sentimental, unless you have the moon in Cancer, I suppose, or Pisces or something like that. But typically, an Aries person is very forward moving and isn't stuck in the past. Again, you know, is sometimes when people have planets in the 12th house, like the sun or the moon, or the 4th house, you may be more sentimental. But in general, you tend to kind of like always progress. And one main reason is because you are a cardinal sign. So you tend to take action in your life, and that makes you more likely to always be progressing in some way, because there's not that stagnation that we find with some of the fixed signs and some of the signs that are more emotional, that tend to get caught up in their emotions. And that is one of the things that is a really great quality of Aries, is that, and plus you just enjoy fresh starts anyway. So I like that I got the Ace of Swords for you as an overall message, because it is like moving forward. Okay, Aries, that's what I have for you. If you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.